let's go to 3 different antique stores in one day. Starting off with the first antique store, I headed in and I ended up seeing a PlayStation 4 games right away. Then a bunch of stickers here that were video game related. It was a bunch of cool stuff, as well as some pins. This little Kirby was so cute. Then I saw some Five Nights at Freddy's plushes, and I continued on because I really haven't found anything I've got to have. Then I found this booth that had a bunch of Game Informers and game magazines overall, as well as a bunch of plushies that were in this one. I mean, this one has had a lot of stuff, and occasionally it changes, but nothing really new here in the plus section. So I headed into this little booth that had a ton of new stuff. They had just restocked it. They had the Show 21, Assassin's Creed Rogue, Rise of the Tomb Raider, and this Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. I almost picked up Rise of the Tomb Raider for 12 bucks. It would have been 7 or 8 bucks because it was on sale, but I couldn't get it because I didn't know if I'd actually want to play it. Then I ended up finding this Sonic figure, which was pretty cool, right next to that box of games. It was kind of hidden in the corner there. And then while I was looking at the shirts, I found the Super Mario Brothers. But I didn't really need this shirt, and for $12.99, it was too small for me, so I left it behind. And when I was leaving, I noticed they had this Pokemon Lego set, which was pretty cool, as well as behind it, they had this Pokemon card/board game. I thought about picking this up, but I don't really have a place for it, so I left it behind. I found this little Pikachu Rubik's Cube. It was obviously a knockoff, but it was cool to see. This little booth had a few Animal Crossing things at the top. Then I saw these green spines in this kind of glass case from afar away, as well as these arcade cabinets right next to it in the other glass case. But honestly, neither one of these things are things I need to pick up. Then I headed to the overpriced booth where, to my surprise, when the overpriced things were still here, which these have been here for probably 6 to 8 months. Then I headed on down because I was not buying anything from there. I ended up finding Cars Race-O-Rama for the PS2 for $6, but then I ended up going to this final booth that had a few Xbox 360 and Xbox things. But if you've seen the channel before, I kind of picked all the good stuff out of here. So there was nothing I absolutely had to have here. But that's okay. We've still got 2 antique stores left. So let's head to the next one right now. This is the antique store that I always go to when I'm looking to pick something up, because usually I'm able to find something, at least one thing to pick up. The first thing I did was head to this glass case that had a bunch of stuff in it, but all of this stuff was way too overpriced. These are not antique store prices. These are like full eBay plus like DK Oldies type prices. I'm not about that, so I moved on pretty quickly. They did end up having these Minecraft Lego sets though. They looked pretty cool, but these have been there for quite a while and they're definitely overpriced. So I continued on where I ended up finding this Warzone refrigerator is still here, and a few PS3 games were here off to the side. I ended up checking them all out and grabbed the Smurfs 2 because it was complete in the box for the PlayStation 3 for only $3. That's definitely a decent pickup. Then I moved on to the kind of owner of this store. He's got a booth that has a ton of video games, and I did look around it for a little bit, but honestly, there was nothing that was just jumping out at me that I had to have. There wasn't anything really new here, and all of the Xbox 360, the PlayStation 3, and PS4 games, like this Guitar Hero, have been here for a while, so there wasn't anything that I had to have, so I continued on, where I did see this Guitar Hero drum set, but it was way overpriced, as well as, speaking of overpriced games, these games have been in this glass case for forever, and no one is buying it. This next booth ended up having a bunch of games here and a few games down below that were just loose discs. So I looked through them and was kind of hoping to find something good here, but again, there's not really anything new. I've seen most of this stuff in previous videos. So I headed back to the back where they have this glass case that always kind of has video game related stuff in it, but this same old is kind of here, which is kind of a bummer. I think maybe I need to give this place a little bit of a rest. There was a few games here, but again, these are all things I saw last time I was here, so I'll probably end up giving this place a little bit to restock, but honestly, I'm not too disappointed because I did end up picking up the Smurfs 2 for $3. This game complete is worth around $10, and I don't have it on the PS3, and it looked kind of interesting. Looked like it was going to be kind of a weird, wacky game, which I might like. So instead of spending $10, I got it for $3 and got out of there because we've got one place left we've got to go. And that is an antique place I've never been to called Redbeard's Treasure Chest. Now, I headed in here in search of video games, and obviously the first thing I found was an arcade 1-up machine for $250, which is just wild. Then I saw this green peeking out, but it was unfortunately only a football game. This Halo figure did look pretty cool, but honestly, I don't need it. I spotted this Mario figure from afar, as well as that Rabbids, but honestly, I'm gonna leave it because I'm looking for games here, not plushies that I already have. Then I found a bunch of cool games. Donkey Kong Country Returns for the Wii. That's actually priced pretty decent. And then a bunch of PlayStation 4 games that I thought about picking up but ended up passing on, as well as some Lego Mario figures. These are cool. I don't collect Mario Legos just because they are so expensive, but it's cool to see out in the wild. A few more games here and there. I like to find games because it means there's probably potential to find good stuff here. And that is when I found 2 GameCube games. The Sims Bustin' Out for only $2, as well as The Urbz, which is another Sims-like game, for $2. These are awesome. I keep finding GameCube games this summer, and it has not stopped, which is amazing. I found a few DS games here off to the side, but if you look to the right and a little past this, you see a full booth full of video games. On the right here, there's just a ton of consoles, whether it's an Xbox 360, you got the Super Nintendo, PlayStation 2, you've got the NES. There's just a ton of video game consoles here, but they're all a little expensive. And the same is kind of said about all these games on this rack. I kind of went through it a little bit off camera, and nothing was standing out to me. The things that I was interested in were $5 to $10 over price charting, so I decided I didn't really need to pick anything up. But I do love to see stuff like this. If you're going out to places like this, it's cool to see. They even had this Turok game, which was decently priced, but the amount of video games in this booth alone were really awesome to see. Unfortunately, there wasn't anything here that I absolutely had to grab. More GameCube games, but they were a little pricey, as well as some more consoles here on the left, and then some DVDs. Then this Game Boy Color caught my eye, but they wanted a little too much for it, so again, unfortunately, this booth was overpriced, but there were some cool stuff. Like, I've never seen this before for the Switch, but we need to continue on, so I got out of that booth and kept walking, where I ended up finding this Luigi cat plush, which was pretty cool. I thought about getting it, but it was a little torn up on the back. Then I saw these PlayStation 4 games that are pretty basic. This next booth actually ended up having this PS3 game, which caught my eye. And then when I got farther into the booth, I noticed there was actually a bunch of video games here. Some decent stuff, but again, it seems like these people know how much things are and were kind of overcharging as well. But, of course, you know, I've got to stop and look at it. An NES game out in the wild. I don't see these too often in my area, so that's cool. And the same can be said about the Super Nintendo, but I either have these games or they're beat up and I don't really need them. So I left them behind, but this is a cool new place that I'm definitely going to have to check out. Finding GameCube games out in the wild is always awesome, but finding them for $2 each is just crazy to me. First off, we've got The Sims busting out. This game, complete like this, is worth around $20. And then we've got The Herbs Sims in the City, is worth about $25. And both of these are complete, which is absolutely awesome. So only spending $2 each. These are worth like $45. And I paid $4, which is crazy to me. Anytime I find GameCube games, they're always like $15, $20 or more. So $2 games absolutely blew my mind. But that's what we have today. We went out to 3 different antique malls. We ended up finding, coincidentally, 3 different games. Now, unfortunately, there wasn't any like huge hauls or scores, but that happens. These are pretty good though, so I'm glad to be able to add them to the GameCube collection. But I'm really happy that I found some good stuff. So I'm getting out of here because I got something back here that I've been working on and having a ton of fun with. So check that video out if you haven't already. But overall, this new antique mall actually had some good stuff. And there was plenty of games in there. So I'm definitely going to have to check it out again. But for the meantime, this is all I picked up. So I'm getting out of here. So check out that video out if you haven't already.